On today's show, the Atlanta Hawks are still on the road for a couple of more days, but in the meantime, we'll get into where the Hawks might be in some award races, plus your mailbag questions, a Suns preview, and more. All that is coming up.
You are Locked On Hawks, your daily Atlanta Hawks podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network. Your team every day.
Hello, friends. Welcome to episode 1883 of the Locked On Hawks podcast. I am your host, Rowland, coming to you on a Wednesday evening into Thursday here in early to mid-January. And today's podcast is sponsored by the folks at Gametime. Download the Gametime app, create an account, and use promo code LOCKEDONNBA for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. I also want to encourage you at the top of the show to make us your first listen each and every day here at Locked On Hawks. Check us out and subscribe to the podcast anywhere you find your podcast. Smash the subscribe button over there on YouTube as well. Like the podcast as you're watching it. And please tell your friends about the show across platforms. It's been busy on the show this week. 3 shows already along the way, and a 4th right now, and a 5th coming up tomorrow night. We did a trade-focused mailbag podcast on Monday, then a full breakdown of the walk-off thrilling victory for the Hawks in Utah on a Tuesday night. And by the way, I didn't have the stat last night, so I'm going to add it on right now. Trae Young's game winner, I'm sure you've seen it by now if you're watching or listening to this podcast, was the 7th longest shot at the buzzer to win a game in NBA history, and the longest for the Hawks in franchise history as well. I would also strongly recommend checking out Bob Rathman's call on the Hawks TV broadcast. That was a lot of fun. Shouts to Bob, my guy. And take a listen to that show if you missed it last night as well. And again, tell your friends about the podcast. So today will be kind of a grab bag episode. I got a lot of awards questions about various players on the Hawks roster, so we're going to start with that. But later on, we'll get into your mailbag questions beyond that, some other stuff with Bogey, etc. And then a quick preview at the end of the podcast of the game on Thursday between the Hawks and the Suns out in Phoenix. I do want to leave with one bit of news, and this is kind of looking into Thursday's game, but I reported it today, so at least I should be the one to share it on the podcast. Jalen Johnson has already been ruled out for Thursday's game. That's 3 in a row for Jalen, and 4 of the last 5 with the shoulder injury that he has right now. And I reported this earlier, but citing a source that I have talked to, Jalen stayed in California after the Hawks played there twice in LA last weekend to rehab and work on his shoulder. Now, that's all I know about like what he's actually doing, but strengthening, I'm sure it's probably good that he's not just like sitting around trying to rest it, but he is expected to, from what I was told, meet the Hawks back in Atlanta, and the road trip is of course over on Thursday, so he'll fly home. I'm not sure if he'll play, of course, on Saturday when the Hawks play at home again, but it's a big TBD on his return. That's the latest on Jalen Johnson. He is not with the team right now in Phoenix, nor was he at the game in Salt Lake City, and we'll come back to the Hawks game in Phoenix later on in the podcast. Okay, with that said, we're going to do a sort of awards check-in right now. Rather than answering mailbag questions, I got a lot of different ones. I'm pushing them all together basically on this. We're almost halfway through the season so far. Not quite exactly 50% through the season, but certainly we have almost reached that point. The Hawks have played almost 40 games, etc. And they have a bunch of guys who are at least somewhat factoring in to league-wide awards chatter. So first is probably the most prominent one, and at the moment, the most likely one to win, and that is DeAndre Hunter for 6th Man of the Year. Right now, Hunter is comfortably leading all NBA bench players in scoring. He's averaging 19.8 points per game on 48% from the field, 44% from 3, 84% of the free throw line. Very, very efficient, and again, almost 20 points per game off the bench. He's been off the bench really the entire time that he came back, and he's not giving the Hawks a ton more than that in the box score. But ironically, it's a very traditional 6th Man of the Year profile in a lot of different ways. But I don't always love 6th Man of the Year. It's often like the leading scorer off the bench, kind of almost free of context. And there are some 6th Man choices in the past that I really did not like. But I think that Hunter has the efficiency on his side, which is good. And defensively, he's at least fine on that end of the floor. So that's a nice sort of change from the traditional 6th Man of the Year case, which is like that combo guard scorer type. Hunter has a pretty valuable archetype as that combo forward who can score and also defend some. Hunter's been awesome in that role this year and very obviously should be a leading candidate for 6th Man of the Year at this point. I think his main competition right now is Peyton Pritchard of Boston, who has a different case, but one that voters might like because he's playing, number one, the most minutes. He actually leads the entire NBA in bench minutes by a lot. He's the only one over 900. He's over 1,000 minutes already coming into today's games on Wednesday. For context, Hunter is still below 700 minutes, so that's a big gap. That will probably sort of narrow at some point in time. honestly, they're playing about the same per game, about 28 per game, but Hunter missed those 13 games earlier this year, which is probably why he'd be held back a little bit in the race right now. If Pritchard plays every game all year, that will probably be an advantage for him. But crucially, the 65 game rule that applies to like MVP and All NBA, et cetera, does not apply to Sixth Man of the Year. So you can play 64 games and win it. Now, it's obviously going to be held back a little bit on your case in some respects, but you can win it at below 65 games, which probably might help Hunter in this endeavor. And by the way, if he plays every game the rest of the year, he'll be at 69 games. So he's definitely going to be on pace for a reasonable amount of games to win the award. But anyway, back to Pritchard quickly. Both guys actually are about 64% true shooting. That's not sustainable for either one of them probably. Pritchard is a better passer than Hunter by a lot, but Hunter's a better defender, bigger, a little bit more, scheme versatile, etc. Yeah. The big reason why Pritchard is the favorite right now in the betting market is that he's on Boston. That's just the reality. I won't do the whole rant again because I firmly believe last year Bogey would have won Sixth Man, or at least been close to winning it if the Hawks had won more games a year ago. People didn't really know how good he was. Some voters just looked at wins and they kind of want to give award winners to guys who are on good teams. I kind of get that, but you need to be part of your success. And last year, Bogey's case was bolstered by the fact that he was obviously a huge part of the Hawks being decent last year. They were a lot better when he played, et cetera, et cetera. Boston has a better record, of course, than the Hawks did, and the Hawks do now even. And Boston has a plus 11 net rating with Pritchard on the court, which I'm sure you will see in arguments for him along the way. It's not like because of him, but he'll be credited for that. And right now at FanDuel, our friends over there, Pritchard is a favorite at minus 210. So he's actually a strong betting favorite to win the award at FanDuel. Hunter's number 2 at plus 320, but that's a pretty big gap. Nobody else, by the way, is lower than 10-1 at FanDuel as I'm recording this podcast on Wednesday. So it's basically seems to be like an early 2-horse race between Hunter and Pritchard, but TBD on that, and we'll get into more of it when we get later in the season if Hunter is still playing well and in the conversation. But certainly coming into the year, I did actually say, and I went back and found on a podcast, I thought it wasn't crazy, this summer, that I thought Hunter was a really good value at FanDuel. I think it was like 40-1 at one point, and I was like, hey, if he's in this bench role, he could be pretty good there. And obviously, I thought he might start some games this year. He has not done that for the most part. But the Hawks' leading candidate coming into the year was Bogey. Bogey's been hurt, and that's paved the way for Hunter, who's been awesome this year. And he's definitely a candidate for Sixth Man of the Year at this point in time. One more to get to, then we'll kind of touch on some other ones faster in a second, is Ricochet for Rookie of the Year. Right now at FanDuel, Ricochet is 30-1. Now, that strikes me as way too high, given how this race has gone. That's a very good value, in my opinion, on Ricochet. Of course, this has been a very bad rookie class. Now, that was predicted by most people, including me, that the top of the draft was not a good one. That was kind of what we knew at this point in time. Zach Edey is the favorite right now in the market. He has the best counting stats probably right now of anyone who's still been healthy enough to play a lot. And also, crucially, he's on a good team, and that definitely helps you in winning the award in a year with no clear standouts. I do think that Ricochet is still in the race. He has a good case that could be made if he plays better with how much he's playing and starting and being on a pretty decent team. I think he won't win it unless he shoots the ball better. So far this year, that's been his main weakness in the Rookie of the Year race is his poor shooting efficiency. Now, but most guys are kind of matching him on that respects, but he doesn't have that rebounding category to get that attention that he might get to go along with the efficiency. So I think he's got to shoot better for sure, but he's definitely not out of the race. And if you missed it last week, I think it was maybe a week, 10 days ago, I did a whole deep dive on Ricochet, so I won't do that whole thing again. But his stats are not out of line with other rookies on a per-game basis, other than maybe Jared McCain of Philly, who's been out for a while with injury. But people are going to point that shooting number. I get it. It's been a little bit rough efficiency-wise for Ricochet so far this year. And he also won't get the defensive credit that some might get because he's not big. And I get that too. No huge blocks, etc. But overall, I think 30-1 on Ricochet is a very good value. Would he win it right now? Definitely not, based on the market, based on what I've seen people talking about. But I think he's still a candidate. He's not the leading candidate, but he's still alive in that race, if you ask me, here in early January. All right, more on the award stuff coming up in a second on most improved player, defensive player of the year, all-star stuff, etc. First, the award from our partners on the podcast. Today's show is brought to you by Gametime. I love going to live events, whether it's sports, music, theater, comedy, or other things. And one of my favorite memories in recent days and months was actually going to a concert. The energy and excitement in that venue were really memorable and awesome. And they've made it easier even to get tickets for favorite events with Gametime Picks, their new feature. And that feature filters out all the stuff that you actually don't want and shows you only the incredible deals and great seats. No wasting time. Search through the different tickets options that you actually don't want to look at. Recently, I looked for tickets for a football game using the app at Gametime and actually found honestly amazing deals at Gametime Picks. You actually even see the views from the seats before you buy the tickets. That's actually really valuable to me, knowing what you're going to get into before you walk in the door. And they have a super deal that was particularly impressive and offering great seats on unbeatable prices as well. Plus, the app's all-in pricing shows the total cost up front with no surprise fees at the checkout screen. Take all of the guesswork out of buying tickets right now with the folks at Gametime. Download the Gametime app, create an account, and use promo code LOCKEDONNBA. $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, create that account at Gametime. Use that code. It's LOCKEDONNBA. That's LOCKEDONNBA. LOCKEDONNBA. $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Download the Gametime app today. What time is it? It's game time. Today's show is brought to you by Rocket RX. If you're ready to boost your confidence and take control in the bedroom, Rocket RX has a solution for you. Imagine feeling more prepared and performing at your best. Rocket RX makes it simple and stress-free. Rocket RX offers FDA-approved treatments for erectile dysfunction at a lower cost than branded alternatives. No more uncomfortable doctor visits or pharmacy trips. Everything is delivered straight to your door in discreet and plain packaging. With Rocket RX, you also get trusted care from a real U.S. clinical team. You can complete a quick 100% online consultation right now and actually get your free prescription today at Rocket RX. The place to go is rocketrx.com to get started right now. It only takes 2 minutes. Right now, our listeners can also get 40% off your first order when you use the code LOCKEDONNBA. That's rocketrx.com and use that promo code LOCKEDONNBA, LOCKEDONNBA, LOCKEDONNBA for 40% off your first order with Rocket RX. Terms and conditions apply. Rocket RX, better sex made simple. All right, I'll have some more questions on the mailbag in a second, but first, the rest of the awards check-in here at the top of the show. There are 2 most improved player candidates on the Hawks roster according to the betting markets right now, and our friends at FanDuel have Jalen Johnson, number 2 in the FanDuel odds at plus 400 behind only Cade Cunningham, who's the favorite in Detroit, and then Dyson is 6th best in the odds at plus 1,500. Honestly, I don't love this award, and I never have. It's a flawed construct in general. So no deep dives right now at this point in time. It's still early in the process. Part of this is weird is that Jalen was a candidate for this award last year. His real breakout kind of happened a year already, but sometimes the award is just like a year late. Then he got hurt at the end of last season, but his real big jump came last year. He is better this year for sure, but not by some absolutely massive margin compared to last year. So it's a little bit weird there. Dyson has the more traditional case, but usually you kind of need big counting stats to win this award. He's not really doing that because he's more of a defensive piece. Obviously, he is playing a lot more minutes in Atlanta than he was in New Orleans. His defensive stats are awesome. I think the Hawks are going to have to win a lot of games, though, for him to actually get real credit and have a chance to win the award. It seems like Jalen might have a good chance still if he has a big second half of the season, but those guys are candidates at this point in time. People have asked about Dyson and Defensive Player of the Year. Unfortunately, I would say I don't see him winning that award. Right now, he is 75-1 at FanDuel to win the award. That speaks for itself. He's a big-time long shot, like not impossible, but I think Wemby is going to win it. He's going to have to get hurt probably to not win it, if I had to guess right now. The narrative's there for him. His breakout is there, plus he's absolutely awesome defensively. And then you got Evan Mobley on a great team as an option. Rudy Gobert is always an option, et cetera, et cetera. There are good candidates. Usually a big's going to win this one. The one time a guard won it was Marcus Smart, and that award looks candidly terrible in retrospect. That was the wrong pick that year. And, that might have scared some voters off of guards. Plus, you got other guards, too, like Jalen Suggs. Like, there are other guys that have candidacies. I think Dyson has been absolutely awesome defensively and a culture changer on defense for the Hawks this season. But I think his realistic goal should be first team all defense. That's what he's been saying all year long. He can definitely get there. That's definitely possible. But winning DPOI is probably not going to happen. But, hey, if you want to take the long shot odds, I get it. Then there's All-Star. I'll be quick on this one a little bit. Because All NBA is kind of different. I'll put that to the side for later on. With due respect to DeAndre Hunter, who's having a good year, he's not really a candidate for All-Star. I know the Hawks have tried to push him out some as an All-Star candidate. He's not really a candidate, I don't think. And that's not a mean thing. Again, he's having a great year. Sixth Man of the Year is definitely in view for Hunter, but not an All-Star right now. Trae and Jalen are obviously candidates. So the short version is I think Trae should flat out make All-Star right now. I think Trae should be on the All-Star team. Whether he is or not, up to the coaches. We'll see. Trae should be there. Jalen is like on the borderline. I think Trae has a better chance than Jalen, and he probably should have a better chance than Jalen. I'm kind of skeptical that Jalen will make it unless he goes kind of crazy in the next couple of weeks, which he is not really playing right now, etc. Trae is having the best shooting season in the world, obviously, but it is steadily rising. His efficiency overall with true shooting is better than his field goal percentage. I won't do the whole rant now, but I would encourage everyone to look beyond field goal percentage in 2025, especially when accounting for guards who shoot a lot of threes. That's not even a Trae statement. That's just a guard statement in general. Don't look at field goal percentage. It's not an important stat compared to true shooting, or even if you don't like free throws, and by the way, free throws matter, they still count. Even better than field goal percentage would be effective field goal percentage if you want to do that. Anyway, Trae is also the best passer in the league right now. He's leading the league in every category with passing. Pretty rarefied air, averaging 12 assists per game. He's number 2 in the league in points created from scoring and assists combined, only behind Nikola Jokic, who is the best player in the world. So pretty good company there. He's also carrying an offense that has some issues with spacing, etc. I think Trae's been a top 20 player in the league this year, probably. He's been really, really good, and he should make the All-Star team. Now, Jalen, I get the argument why he would make it. He's averaging 19.8 points, 10.1 rebounds, 5 assists, good efficiency, at least a solid enough defensively. And the Hawks obviously fall off a cliff without him, which definitely helps his case. I think he's probably a year away if you follow the trends here. Usually, if the Hawks were winning a lot of games, like if the Hawks were 27-10, you get a ton of Jalen buzz right now for good reason. But I would be surprised if a team like the Hawks is not always in the national spotlight, got 2 All-Stars while hovering around 500. That's the simple case of why I don't think it's going to happen. Trae's the more established star. He is their guy. Jalen's obviously really, 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 really good, very young, and the Hawks love him. They are invested in him fully. But the math gets a little bit ugly. I won't go through all the names, but if you start going into like Cleveland's might get 3 All-Stars because they're playing so well. You got the Knicks have 2 guys with Towns and Brunson. You got Giannis. You got Tatum. LaMelo Ball might start for the East. He probably shouldn't, but he might. He leads the Eastern fan voting. You got Jaylen Brown. It's all these guys. So I'm not ruling it out, to be very clear. I'm not ruling it out. But I tend to know these like trends decently well. And a lot of early like lists that are out there from people in the media don't have Jalen on them, for instance. If the Hawks got really hot right now and won a bunch of games, it would definitely help him. But he's also currently hurt, et cetera, et cetera. So we'll see. But he's definitely a candidate. And I think Trae, again, should be on the team. If you ask me to vote for my team right now, he'd be on it. TBD if he actually makes it. All right. Non-award stuff. A question from Sam, who says, is it time to worry about Bogey or will he come out of this? So reasonable question. The short answer is I'm a little bit worried about Bogey, but I'm not terrified, if that makes sense. The big thing is his health and age and body, right? So he's only played 16 games this year, which means he's missed 21 games. That's, of course, notable. He's 32 now. Not an age where he have to like fall off a cliff, but he's probably on the downside of the aging curve, if we're just being honest. And with the exception of 2021, when he was incredible down the stretch of that season, last year was his best full season. He was really good, career high in minutes, played 79 games, great on off splits, great advanced metrics. All of it was there. So like, it's not that far away. He was really, really good literally last season and also really, really good this summer for Serbia. But one of the questions that I have and what people should be asking is like where he is physically. He played a lot of basketball this summer, looked great. They got a late start to training camp, got banged up, and he's never looked right to me physically this year at all on the court. Can he get that back? Sure. Like he's actually been better in second half of his career. First half, second half splits are better almost across the board for him. So it's possible he gets that back, but not guaranteed. No matter what you think about Bogey right now, I am very confident about one thing. He's going to shoot better than he has so far this year. Almost certainly. He's at career lows in almost every shooting category. 3-point range, true shooting overall is the worst it's been since he's like a rookie in Sacramento, for instance. One way of framing this as well is to reference EPM. EPM is a advanced all-in-one metric that it's not like it's not the absolute perfect thing, but I think it's the one that I like the most, generally speaking. It's not gospel, but if you kind of need context, it's probably useful. But they have actual EPM and expected EPM. Actual is how you played this season. Expected is a projection of what you actually are moving forward. At the moment, Bogey is in the 70th percentile, which is a very good player, in expected EPM. So they're looking at his career, his age, all those things put into one, and their projection for him from this point forward is a good player. But this season, his actual number is 32nd percentile, which is a pretty bad player. And that tracks. Bogey's not been good this year. Even as like a leading Bogey guy, he has not been good this year. He's hurt the Hawks when he's played more often than not. For reference, last year, he was 88th percentile in actual EPM. He was excellent last season. So long story short, like answering the question directly, I would say it's possible that Bogey's peak is now behind him. Last year might have been it as far as his peak is concerned. Might have been. Not definitely, but might have been. I do believe, though, if he's on the court and okay physically, like not getting hurt again, he'll be better than he's been so far this year. Now, how much better, we will see. It'll probably be in the middle of last year and this year would be my guess. It's obviously a pretty big range, but he's going to get better. I'm confident in that if he is healthy. Then there's the question that I won't talk about a lot right now, but whether the Hawks should consider trading him, because contenders would be interested in Bogey. He's always had a market. He's a very appealing player. He's competitive. The shooting is respected, all that stuff. The Hawks love Bogey. They always have. The asking price has always been really high for him, but it's maybe not the worst time to sell on Bogey if you wanted to look up and do that right now if you're the Hawks. He's on a great contract that definitely helps things. So anyway, it's nuanced. He's definitely not helped them this year, both because of the missed time and struggling when he's actually been playing. But I think he's going to improve. How much he improves is going to be a big old TBD from me at this point in time. All right, more to come. At least one more question, then we'll get into the Suns game at the end of the show. First, though, we're from our partners on the podcast. I want to take a moment right now to introduce you to a brand new mobile game that I'm really excited about. It's called Ultimate College Basketball HC. If you've ever been dreaming about being a college basketball coach, this is your chance to step up into those shoes. In Ultimate College Basketball HC, you control every detail of your program. That includes recruiting players, hiring your coaching staff, overseeing training camps, handling NIL deals in the modern landscape, and managing scholarships. All that and more, it's all in your hands. And when it comes to game time, you drop plays offensively, set your strategies overall, and the way you play just will not affect the current season. It will actually shape the future of the program at your school's basketball program. It's a game that actually lets you feel the full weight of what it means to be a head coach and lead your team to glory. And there's a special offer right now for Locked On listeners, and the promo code is Locked On CBB. That's all caps. It's Locked On CBB in all caps inside the game store to get a free boost for your program. It's a perfect way to kickstart your college career and your coaching career right now. And to download it, and it's Ultimate College Basketball HC. The place to go is ultimate-cbb.com. One more time, it's ultimate-cbb.com, or look it up in the App Store as well. Ultimate College Basketball HC. Begin your coaching legacy today. All right, question from Corey, who says, you've been spitting on how rough the Hawks are without Trae and JJ. Hypothetical, how real would this year's team be if they could both play 40 minutes and 82 games? Thank you for the question, Corey. As I always say on the show with mailbags, send them questions to me in different ways. You can get them to me on Twitter /X at BT Rowland or at Locked On Hawks, or on Blue Sky at BT Rowland, or send them to the show on email. It's lockedonhawks@gmail.com, or also patreon.com /BT Rowland. Anyway, first of all, I want to back up the question. The Hawks currently have a minus 19.6 net rating without Trae or Jalen on the court this year. They are awful on both ends. That's not a huge surprise. They're not as bad with only one of them on the court, but they're not good either. So the question is accurate from Corey. They really struggle without Trae or JJ, and especially without both of them at this point. Obviously, this is not realistic, and that you cannot guarantee that they play 40 minutes a night, 82 games. But I got kind of a similar question that I actually was asked in addition to this, which is basically like how good the Hawks would be or are when they are playing their best guys, which kind of overlaps. So for reference, this year with Trae and Jalen together on the court, they are plus 6.1 net rating in raw net rating at NBA.com and plus 7.9 at cleaning the glass, which strips out garbage time and is a little bit more predictive, I think, generally speaking. They are high end offensively, 86th percentile, and also about 2/3 of the way up the percentile listing on defense. So they're good on defense, and they're excellent on offense when they have Trae and Jalen on the court. Not a big surprise. There's the two best players, etc. So they're quite good. but they're not like Boston or OKC or Cleveland or anything like that. I know they beat Cleveland twice, but Cleveland's been playing ridiculous basketball when those guys play. But they're still good. They're not like elite, but they're really good when those guys play. So going back to the question of those guys playing 40 minutes a game and playing every game, if that was the case, I would lock the Hawks in for a win total at least in like the high 40s probably for the season. Again, you can't guarantee this, but that net rating translated is pretty good, especially even if you have to sit those guys a little bit along the way because it's only 40 minutes, not all 48 minutes in the question. But they'd be a solid top 5 team in the East, I think. If you could guarantee every single game for Trae and Jalen and also 40 minutes a game, that'd be very helpful. I'm a little bit less confident in this, but if you just told me that Trae and Jalen would be mostly healthy the rest of the year, I'd be pretty confident the Hawks are going to make the playoffs. I'm not guaranteeing it by any means. And by the way, you can't guarantee that to me. And the drop-off without them is really rough. So there's legitimate uncertainty here overall. Like we'll see with Jalen even again on Thursday or even on Tuesday when the Hawks probably should have won by more. They didn't, etc. But the two of them are so crucial to what the Hawks do that it's not really up for debate at this point in time. And by the way, if you missed it earlier this week, I talked extensively on a mailbag show about backup point guard, backup power forward. I won't go through that again, but it would obviously be quite helpful if the Hawks addressed one or both of those needs in the next 4 weeks before the deadline. So keep an eye on that and on the space as well. But yeah, I think overall, they'd be really good. If you turn injuries off, the slider off basically on injuries and had them play a lot of minutes, it'd be very helpful for the Hawks. Okay, last thing before we get out of here on this Wednesday into Thursday, the Hawks play the Suns on Thursday. I teased that out earlier on the podcast with Jalen's injury update, but it's their last game of this marathon 2-week, 6-game road trip. It's been forever. Jalen is out for the last 5, TBD on that, but he's out in this game. Beyond that, Okongwu is actually questionable with a facial contusion. Now, I don't know what to make of that, honestly. Questionable is questionable. For instance, Trae and Bogey are probable, so I think those guys are probably going to play. But Okongwu is questionable. If he can't play, it almost has to be Don Barlow behind Clint Capella. Because right now, Mo Gay, who's the other option, is in the G League, as I record this podcast on Wednesday night. Larry Nance is hurt, etc. They don't really have another option. It pretty much has to be Don Barlow playing real minutes if Okongwu can't play on Thursday. TBD. The Suns are without Royce O'Neal, but everybody else is playing for Phoenix, including Kevin Durant and Devin Booker. So Phoenix has not been good lately. They started 9-2, and they're 7-17 since then. They have trade buzz all the time around Beal, around all kinds of things. They just made a big lineup change. They're bringing Bradley Beal off the bench, which is interesting in a lot of different ways. But I will note this: they're still 14-6 this year when Durant and Booker both play. Now, that's a good basketball team, and they're both playing in this game. So they've had some injuries. They should be better than they are, but they are still good when they have KD and Booker available, and they're both playing, at least they're supposed to play, on Thursday. On offense, Phoenix is obviously super talented with those guys. Upside is really high with Booker and Durant up there, plus Beal's pretty good still, even if he's overvalue on his contract. They do take a lot of jump shots and basically never get to the rim. In fact, they are dead last in the league in rim frequency by a lot. So if they make jump shots, you might be in some trouble. If they don't, their plan B is not very strong. That's a very simple explanation, but still, that's kind of true. Defensively, they play a lot of the math game. They are coached by old pal Mike Budenholzer. So they don't have the big hulking center that Bud had in Milwaukee with Brook Lopez. They don't have the combination of Al Horford and Paul Millsap defensively to kind of anchor things like he had in Atlanta. So the personnel is much worse, but they do play the math game. They're number 1 in the league in corner three-point attempt rate allowed. They do not allow corner threes. That's an important math distinction. They're number 6 in rim frequency allowed. So they want to force you into taking mid-rangers and contested shots above the break, et cetera, et cetera. But they also have some issues defensively. They don't create havoc at all. Like personnel-wise, when you're playing Durant and Booker and Beal and Monty Morris and Tyus Jones, like they don't have havoc creators defensively. They just don't have personnel on the perimeter. They do have Ryan Dunn, who I love, dating back to the draft. But other than that, he's kind of it for that. And they also just personnel, they're just not great defensively. So if the Hawks play like they did on offense against Utah, they'll be in okay shape in this game. If they struggle and play more like they did against LA, then they'll be in trouble. At present, I'm checking one more time, make sure that this has not changed in the last half hour as I'm recording the podcast. But yeah, the Hawks right now at FanDuel, drum roll please, as I'm looking this up one more time. The Hawks right now at FanDuel are 4-point underdogs in the game on Thursday. That could change a little bit, but no major injury uncertainty other than a Kongwu who probably isn't going to move the line a ton if he's out or in. The Johnson injury definitely hurts. Basically, what that line is telling you is that on a neutral court, Phoenix would be a tiny favorite, and they're getting a little bit of a bump for being at home. I think if Jalen played, this would be a pretty close projection. Phoenix is the favorite. That makes sense. The Hawks are, not to rehash this again, the Hawks have really bad numbers with Jalen off the floor this year. And yeah, they beat Utah on Tuesday. That game was not comfortable at all. It was a road win, and road wins are road wins. That was a positive victory, a positive night for the Hawks on the whole, but that wasn't like a, hey, we're awesome without Jalen moment. The Hawks have now won twice without Jalen this year, but in those two games, they've beaten the Kings without Sabonis and DeRozan, and they beat the Jazz. So this would be their best win sans Jalen this year if they can beat the Suns. And they're underdogs in the game for a reason, but it's also winnable for sure. Phoenix has been kind of a mess recently. The Hawks are capable of winning this game for sure. It would help if Bogey got going a little bit in this one without Jalen. Okongwu not playing would definitely hurt because that drop off to Barlow would be significant. But Barlow's not a zero either. Barlow's been playing in the NBA before. He was good in San Antonio last year at times, et cetera, et cetera. So I will stop now and ramble less, but that's the show for today and a pretty intriguing game on Thursday that will wrap up the road trip. I, for one, am looking forward to not having to record at 2 a.m. anymore after this West Coast trip. That'll be nice. But anyway, stay tuned. I will have a show after the game on Thursday. Anyway, that's all I have. But please, please, please subscribe to the show anywhere you find your podcasts. You can find us on Apple. You can find us on Spotify. We're also on Amazon Music and Overcast and YouTube. Please smash the subscribe button anywhere you find your podcast. 5-star ratings and reviews appreciated as well. Follow the show on Twitter/X at Locked On Hawks. Follow me at BT Rowland. Also follow me on Blue Sky at BT Rowland on my non-podcast work. If you want to support that, is at patreon.com/BT Rowland. All right, everybody, enjoy the rest of your Wednesday into Thursday, and we'll see you in about 24 hours after Hawks Suns. We'll see you all next time.